Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. If you feel you need a therapist, please go to Google, type in therapy, your city, Psychology Today will pop up, click on that, and it will have qualified therapists in your area. Also, the views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other damn therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. Okay, so the first question is, I had a friend that was love bombed away from friends and family. Suddenly started acting like the narcissist, parroted things that the narcissist said, basically became the abuser that the person was living with. How do I keep the memories of this person I loved, but firmly understand that this new person is not the same person, cannot be trusted, and is only out to hurt? I could do this if they were dead, or if I knew that they were a narcissist from the beginning. It's very confusing. I don't understand. How do I shut off the memories? It's so painful. I wish that they had just died. Okay, so here's the deal. When somebody who is an echoist, okay, and I've talked about this before, an echoist does not know who they are. They adopt the personality of whoever the romantic interest is because their inner child is still trying to figure out the relationship with their parent, whichever one was the most harmful and hurtful. There's no sense of self there. An echoist is just echoing back whatever other people are telling them. And so oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, an abuser will get their hooks into somebody who does not have a good sense of self, and they will start poisoning them against family, against friends, against colleagues, against whatever. And pretty soon this person is unrecognizable. You know, they will have gone from, you know, loving, kind, sweet, gentle, fun, happy, hysterically funny, etc., to overly serious, no sense of humor. And if there is a sense of humor, it's very snarky, it's very mean, it's very nasty, it sounds just like their partner, etc., etc., etc. And they'll start spewing stuff out of their mouth that sounds like their abuser about family and friends and colleagues, etc., etc., etc. So when a narcissist gets their hooks into someone who is an echoist, who is an echo, they're not themselves, they don't know who they are, they don't have a clear defined sense of self, they take on the personality of whoever the abuser is that they are with, and they, in sense, become a minor narcissist. They become just like the abuser that they are with that has love bombed them, etc., etc., etc. And the whole intent of the abuser is to make sure that that echoist is not influenced by family, friends, colleagues, etc. And so they set about to isolate, 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 because then they can completely and totally manipulate them and keep them in their realm of, you know, being and whatever. They control their every move. They don't want them to see their family. They don't want them to see their friends. They tell them to get rid of their kids. They tell them to get rid of their pets. They tell them to not go out and see, you know, elderly moms and dads or elderly siblings or whatever, because they have to maintain control. And when that person is in contact with anybody, they are not themselves. So it's like I've had people say, wow, my friend went from this to I don't even recognize them, you know, on the phone or whatever, because they're not them. Well, they're not. They're running that other person's personality because they're echoists. They don't have a sense of self. So how do you get over that? Well, the thing you have to realize is they were who you are when you were with them. So in other words, they are kind of narcissists in that they mirror, right? So they're mirroring, mirroring, mirroring. They're constantly trying on new personas, etc. But the nice, wonderful, kind person was the person that you probably are. And so now there was this other person, and so now they're mirroring this other person who is an abuser. So the real them, you didn't know them. They don't even know them. They're not, there's no there there. So when I say there's no there there, so what you do, again, and I talked about this last week when I talked about detachment, you move the memory into a new part of your heart. Whoever was there with you was wonderful, that's great, and that person is now gone. They have chosen to stay unconscious. They have chosen to stay in echo. They have chosen to not go to therapy, to work on themselves, and you must move that relationship into a different part of your heart. They are no longer present. The person you knew in that relationship no longer exists. The person who exists now is a mere copy of the abuser. It's an echoist thing. They're mirroring the abuser. So now they have become the abuser. They have become the personality of the abuser. Snarky, nasty, mean, derogatory, put downs, word salad, crazy shit like that. Stuff that they never used to do before, now they're suddenly doing. Well, it's the abuser. They are mirroring the abuser. So basically, when you have a family or friend or whatever that gets love bombed away and they lose themselves and become that abusive person, you have to let them go, because the person that you thought you knew never existed. They're egoists. They don't know who they are. They adopt whatever personality. And generally the ones who do that have got some really serious issues with family of origin. It's usually a mom or dad issue that has been unresolved, that they've never worked on, that they've been unwilling to confront, unwilling to deal with, unwilling to have their own personality, unwilling to stop being a victim, unwilling to fill in the blank. So they can have brief moments of, funness when they're away from an abuser, but once they get sucked into that, if they're an echoist and they get sucked into that abuser's realm, they disappear and they become the abuser. So basically it's not so much that they are dead, but they are not here. That person that you loved is gone, and they will continue to hurt, they will continue to harm, they will continue to degrade and put down. The more you try to keep that relationship going, the more you're going to get damaged, because the abuser is sitting there whispering bad, horrible, terrible things, lies in their ears, and they have to, because they're not them, they are an echo, they have to puppet out, vomit out whatever the abuser has said. So the abuser will lie to them and tell them terrible things about you, and the next thing you know, they're going, well, you're this and you're that, you, and the person they're really talking about is the abuser, because the abuser is projecting, and they're doing abuse by proxy through the echoist. So basically, it's you let it go. You let it go. You honor that relationship, that friendship, that family relationship, that romantic, whatever. And you go, okay, they've got issues, you close the door, you don't necessarily lock it, but you certainly don't let them march on in and abuse you. So it's, okay, this is what you want, great, goodbye, there it is, you grieve. It's grieving the loss of somebody who's still alive. It is grieving the loss of somebody who's still alive. When an echoist gets stuck or trapped by an abuser, you grieve the loss of somebody who's still alive, because that person is essentially dead. So they've now become the abuser. So anyway, hope that answers that question. And you move on. You move them into a different part of your heart. It's like, yes, you had a great time with them, and yes, they were awesome. They are no longer here. And who is here is somebody who is willing to harm you, which means they're abusive. Anybody who's willing to harm is an abuser. No, thank you. You don't need that in your life. And you remind yourself of that. You write a goodbye letter. Dear whoever, here's the good, here's the bad, here's the ugly, here's the horrific, and I don't deserve to be treated like this. And I'm not going to sit here and listen to your bullshit lies that your abuser is spewing out through your mouth. I'm not going to put up with abuse by proxy. Have a nice life. Go fuck yourself sideways. Adios. Bye-bye. Trot it out to the barbecue. Read it out loud once. Burn it. Let it go. Because you got bigger things to do. So, hope that answers that question. Okay, has anybody had an abusive partner that was in the military or the police? It's so much more terrifying and destructive. I'm scared to death. What do I do? Because they seem to back each other up. Okay, that can happen. Absolutely. So this is where documentation comes in handy, and this is where getting as many eyes on it as possible is what you want. So if you're in a situation, small town, or somebody who's in the military or in the police or powerful or whatever, you want to get as many eyes on it as possible. The more people that see what's going on, the safer you are. So yeah, that does happen. And yes, there are instances where people have covered for the abuser. And that's why I'm saying you get as many eyes on it as possible. That is the best thing to do. And you keep documentation like a pro. Seriously, you want to document like nobody's business. Document, 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 document. That's what you want to do. Okay, my ex had all the criteria of being all the cluster B disorders depending on who they were talking to. What is that? I don't know. I don't have them in front of me. You guys ask me this all the time. I cannot diagnose somebody without them in front of me. Who knows? Chameleon? Echoist? Who knows? I don't know. So, sorry. Can't give you a better answer than that. I think I answered this other one. I have anticipation anxiety before opening a mail. What does this trace its root to? Being judged. Yes. So when we have anxiety, anxiety is fear. So the question is, what is the fear? So is it because you're afraid that this mail is going to be, you know, damning and judging and whatever? So you got to figure out what the fear is. And there's books that you can work on with that. So there's the Fear and Phobia workbook. There's anxiety workbooks. I mean, there's tons of workbooks that you can get to work on all of this stuff. Okay, best tips for codependency healing. Okay, codependency is really, when we boil it all down, a self-esteem issue. Everything, honest to God, in the universe boils down to a self-esteem issue. So work on your self-esteem. Get with a good trauma therapist. Figure out where the codependency came from. Read the Self-Esteem Workbook by Glenn Schiraldi. Read it and work it. Read The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker. Read it and work it. Get Codependent No More and Beyond Codependent No More by Melanie Beattie. Work it. Start journaling. Where does this codependency come from? Who taught you? Who trained you? Who groomed you to be codependent? It's a learned behavior. We do not pop out of the wombs being codependent. It is a learned behavior. Okay, so those are the books that will help with that. Mirror work. Hi, good to see you. Have a great day. I give you permission to love yourself, like yourself, enjoy your own company. You don't need other people's approval. You need your own. It's okay. And then walk out. So mirror work, doing the mirror work, giving yourself positive regard, giving yourself positive affirmations, hugely important. Okay. Is there any book you recommend for dealing with agoraphobia? So agoraphobia, again, is a fear. So the Fear and Phobia workbook is usually a good one. An anxiety workbook is usually a good one. Agoraphobia comes from our world shrinking, shrinking, shrinking in order to stay safe. It's usually based in some form of trauma. So you want to figure out, when did this start? What was the triggering event? Was it a traumatic event? Is this something that needs to be worked on with a trauma therapist? What happened? So you might want to get with a really good trauma therapist to start figuring out, where did this agoraphobia come from? Why the sudden avoiding? What happened? What is the original trauma? Figure that out. So that's what I would suggest with that. Fear and Phobia workbooks are great. Self-Esteem Workbook is great. CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor. This stemmed from somewhere. When we pop out of the womb, we don't have all these neuroses going on usually. You know, it's usually there is some exterior factor that's causing the neuroses to happen, the fears to happen. So you want to figure out, how old were you? When did this happen? Why did this happen? Who taught you to be afraid? Who taught you to have fear and anxiety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Kids who've got parents that have got good self-esteem don't generally have a whole lot of anxiety because there's that sense of safety. It's when we don't have the sense of safety that we feel like, oh my gosh, I'm in danger. Oh my gosh, this is scary. Oh my gosh, I can't do this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So parents who give their kids a sense of safety and consistency, their kids usually don't have a whole lot of anxiety or trauma or anything else. So you want to think about what went on when you were a kid. Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor. What was the trauma? What was the triggering event? Journal, write it out. If you need to, get with a good trauma therapist to try to figure out what's going on. Okay, I think those are all the questions that I have today, which is great. On Sunday, I am going to be talking about word salad. Communication things that narcissists do to try to keep us stuck in that vicious cycle of arguing with them or hoping that they're going to get better. So I want to talk about sarcasm, I want to talk about passive aggressive, and I want to talk about word salad because they use this a lot in arguments, and they start arguments on purpose. So we're going to be talking about word salad, so it's going to be all encompassed in that. All right, guys, well, have a great day, and I will see you on Sunday. Bye.